All right, guys, let's talk about React. First of all, what is React? Can anyone give me an accurate description of what React is? Is it a framework? Is it a library? What is it? It's a library, that's correct. It's not a framework. There is some controversial. What are the differences between a framework and a library? It goes beyond the scope of the session to explain the differences. My very first advice is, if you are facing your very first job interview and the first thing you said is React is a framework, the employer will be like that. You're sticking on the next candidate, right? So React is a library. A library of what? Which technology, which language runs React? Which one? It is JavaScript. It is JavaScript, correct. Yeah? Does anyone know which is the most popular programming language in the world? It is JavaScript. Yeah? It's not Python. It's not Python. To be honest, even if you combine Python, which is the second most popular programming language, with the third, which is Java, even if you combine them, still less popular than JavaScript. Yeah? With numbers. This is not my crazy feeling after some Jaeger bombs. This is real data coming from GitHub. Do you know GitHub? Yeah. GitHub is the Bible of coding. Yeah? 97% of the code in the world is on GitHub. Probably you heard the story that a couple of years ago, the government of India tried to block access to GitHub. Yeah? And after thinking for 2 minutes, they realized that the country may collapse without GitHub. Yeah, it's not a joke, that's true. That's true. The world cannot survive without GitHub today. So according to GitHub, there are 2.3 million repositories in JavaScript. 1 million Python, 900,000 Java. So it's really popular. Okay, once we accept, hopefully, that JavaScript is very popular, can anyone tell me why is it so popular? Do you think is it easier to learn? Is it faster? Is it sexier? What's the advantage of JavaScript compared to any other language? I like that. Yeah, cool. I like this. So JavaScript is the very only programming language in the world that runs everywhere. Yeah, front-end and back-end. The back-end is just a side effect. That's a relatively new thing. Historically speaking, JavaScript didn't run on the back-end. Yeah, I've been doing JavaScript since 2002. We didn't have JavaScript in the back-end. We need to do Java, C#, PHP, whatever, yeah? But now it runs on the back end. The question is, why on the front end? Do you know how long the creator of JavaScript took to write the very first version of the language? Time-wise, how long? Is it 10 days? That's true. 10 days. Technically speaking, 2 weeks. It looks like he worked on the Saturdays a bit, right? But it doesn't matter, right? It was very quick. The first version of JavaScript was a toy language, something very, very small. But maybe it was just a coincidence. You know these things that happen in life? But JavaScript was the very only language that in 1995, in December 1995, when it was first introduced, got married, got the ring with a web browser. I'm sure if you are about 35, you remember Netscape, yeah? Netscape 4. So Netscape said, yeah, I want to run that thing. What's JavaScript? What that means? I have no idea. Yes, let's run it. In 1995, no one cared. Java didn't care about the web browser. Yeah, C# didn't care. PHP didn't care. Because the web browser was something a bit exotic. Yeah, it wasn't that important. But today, I hope everyone agrees that the web browser is one of the most important pieces of code, of software. Yeah, everyone has a web browser everywhere. We have a web browser in the laptop, in the tablet, in the smartphone, even in some smart watches, and of course on the smart TVs. Yeah. As a side effect, because the web browser is everywhere, JavaScript is everywhere, and that's why it's so popular. Yeah? I've been working for multi-billion companies where they have a web team, and they have an Android team, and they have an iOS team, and they have a whatever team, yeah? So whenever they wanted to build a new feature, they had to replicate it multiple times. That was exhausting. That didn't scale really well. With JavaScript, you build once, it works everywhere. Yeah, that's why it's not only the most popular programming language in terms of number of repositories on GitHub, but it's the most demanded programming language in the world. Yeah, there are many job opportunities out there about JavaScript. You can't imagine how many. And now, JavaScript, React, has React been there since 1995? Is it the main language, the main library on JavaScript? Was there anything else before React? What was the king of JavaScript before React? Does anyone know?
jQuery.
Oh, you went too far in time. In between of jQuery and React, there was something very popular.
Node.
Say it again?
Node.
No, that's JavaScript on the backend. I'm purely talking about JavaScript libraries or frameworks in the web browser. Has anyone heard about Angular?
Yeah.
Angular, yeah, Angular. All right, so does anyone know who looks after React? Who is the creator? Who maintains React?
Facebook.
It is Facebook, correct. Before React, we got Angular. Who look after Angular? No? Google, that's true. You see the politics, right? You see the battle. So Google, even going back in time, jQuery, yeah? jQuery was the king of the libraries in JavaScript. I know some boot camps in London still teach jQuery. If you accept a single advice from me and we never see each other and all these things, my very single advice will be never trust any company trying to teach you jQuery. They are completely disconnected from the market. They are not going to help you to get a job as a developer. Yeah? jQuery died in 2011. You may be thinking, 8 years is not much. I've been with my girlfriend for 10 years. But in JavaScript time, 8 years is the same as 2 trillion years in human time. That's a lot. Yeah? Never trust anyone trying to teach you jQuery. So in 2011, we got Angular. I was one of the first Angular developers in the world. I've been doing international conferences for Angular. But then we got React, yeah, which is supposed to be better. And I agree it's better. It's more modern, yeah. So we got Google. Now we got Facebook. Is there any rival, any enemies, if you accept the expression of React, on the horizon? Is there any other library trying to get the kingdom of JavaScript? It's Vue. That's true. That's correct. Vue. So we know who is behind Angular, Google. We know who is behind React, Facebook. Who is supporting Vue? Microsoft. No. No. Somebody's, yes, somebody. Somebody with the support of the biggest country in the world. Yeah? It's not me creating a new library and becoming the king of the world. No, the Chinese. Yeah? Seems something not very relevant. But the thing is, since 1995 until today, technically speaking, the Americans had the control on JavaScript. Whoever controls JavaScript controls programming, and whoever controls programming controls the world. But now, suddenly, from nowhere, someone from China is creating a library that is becoming extremely popular. So React is under menace, right? We don't know what will happen in 3 years' time. The good thing is, once you learn React, it's a piece of cake to learn Vue. Because thankfully, in 2019, we got something called standards that makes that even though there are different flavors, the principles are the same. Yeah? React versus Vue. We may do another session about Vue. The message is, if you are looking to break into the market on either Europe or America, React needs to be your choice, for sure. If you are planning to move to China, Vue needs to be your choice. Yeah? All right, so after this 8.5 minutes of boring presentation, let's do some coding. I'm assuming everyone managed to install Node.js and Visual Studio Code and create React app. So you may have seen, if you watched the video that we recorded some time ago, that to create a new application with React, we need to go to a terminal. This is a terminal, right? That ugly window with black text, with black background and white text on top of it. We can type create React app space and then the name of our app. That's the way Facebook recommends you to bootstrap a new application, and that's fantastic. That's fantastic because today creating a new app, the skeleton of the app with all the plugins and all the dependencies is very exhausting. You may need 2 weeks to set up the app by yourself. However, thanks to Facebook, now we can do the same in 2 minutes. Create dash react dash app space and the name of the app. The name of the app is essentially a folder, a directory in your system. So let's think about the name of our app. That obviously depends on what you want to build, and that's a bit personal, right? It doesn't matter what you build. The important thing is to build something. In my particular case, I would like to talk about politicians, yeah? Or let me rephrase that. Characters, to make it a bit funnier, yeah? So create React app space characters. Again, you can talk about whatever you want, yeah? Cars, movies, Brexit, doesn't matter. Once we do that, we type enter, and then look at what happened. Many things running. Now we got the feeling like we are like hackers, right? We're hacking the internet. So essentially, Facebook is downloading for us all the dependencies we need to start dealing with the amazing world of React. FYI, oh, I can see my face is very bright, right? It looks like I'm talking from heaven or something like that. Right. So if you have problems setting up your new project, I've dropped a comment today on the Meetup event explaining how to deal with that. You know that today maintaining a new piece of software is complicated. You've got many dependencies. Look, when I mean many dependencies, right? So they had to be compatible with each other, which is the case 99% of the time. Few weeks ago, one of these dependencies, I can probably even find it, I can tell you which one it is, that one, FS events, it got updated, and because of that, nothing worked anymore, yeah? So this is a well-known issue that happened a few weeks ago. There is a workaround, there is a way to solve the problem. Again, if you get any error, and the error talks about FS events, please check the Meetup page and check the workaround we suggest. It may take you 10 to 15 minutes to solve it. It goes without saying that if during the next minutes you are stuck and you don't know how to proceed, you can either get help from our colleagues or you can keep it simple and pair with someone else. Let's make sure this is a productive session. All right. So the next thing I would like to do is to open the project with Visual Studio Code. Be careful, there are two Visual Studios. The old one, the legacy one, the fat one, yeah, Visual Studio. And now we got the new one, the trendy, the sexy one, Visual Studio Code. Yeah, even though it's just one additional word, it's a completely different piece of software. So be careful, be careful. Visual Studio Code is blue, Visual Studio is purple, yeah, magenta. I'm a bit confused with these colors. Yeah. Anyway, we go to Visual Studio Code, and the first thing we need to do is to open our directory. We have created a new directory. In my case, it's called characters. We need to find it. You see, we got an open folder link, or alternatively, you can go to the menu, file, open. It's the same thing, right? And then you click on it. So we have to find our folder. By default, unless you did something weird, your project has been created in your home directory. And you may be thinking, what's my home directory? Well, it depends. If you're a Mac user, if you type pwd, it will tell you /users/ the name of your user. You can easily find it by navigating. Yeah, you select the home icon, and for instance, I can see this is my characters folder. If you are a Windows user, your home directory will look something like that. C:\users/ username sexy boy 19 / characters, right? Something like that. So please make sure you identify the location of your project. That's vital to build something on top of it. All right, so we select our project, and then next thing you will see is the project is loaded on the left-hand side. Many files and folders, we'll see what they talk about. And before typing any code, any line of code, the only thing we need to do to work with modern piece of software is to start the server. Does anyone know how to start the server in a modern JavaScript application?
Yarn start or npm start.
Correct, yarn start or npm start. So technically speaking, we need to type that on a terminal, yes, like here. But we love to improve our productivity, to build more in less time. And to me, having to move between the ugly terminal and the sexy VS Code is not productive at all. I don't like this sort of ping-pong navigation, right? Because of that, I'll show you a hint. VS Code has an integrated terminal. If you go to terminal, new terminal. And then look at what happened. You see, you got a terminal here. So then it's much easier to interact with the command line. And then as someone suggested, we can start the server by typing either npm start or yarn start. It depends on whether you have yarn or not. By default, if you didn't know what yarn is, you can type npm start. And then let's see what happened. Let's see what happened. It will now, I'm not touching the keyboard, right? I'm not doing interacting with my laptop. Look, it automatically open a new tab in my default browser, which is Google Chrome, but may not be your case. And look at the tiny loading icon on the tab, yeah? After a few very long seconds, hopefully it will display, here we go. Does anyone know what that logo is about? That's the React logo, yeah? A friend of mine told me the other day if I was watching Chernobyl from HBO. No, that has nothing to do with Chernobyl, right? This is the React logo. All right, and now look at the message. That's very important. One of the fantastic things about modern coding is that it's very easy to progress. You get a lot of help. Look, edit source app and save to reload. What that means, edit source app and save to reload, edit source app and save to reload. Essentially, is inviting us to go to VS Code, and on the left-hand side, you see we've got the src folder, and then app.js. You see? Here you go. That's the file I need to deal with in order to start coding. Is that markup language any familiar to you? What is that language? HTML. Does anyone disagree? Correct. If you're applying to a junior position, I will accept that. If you're applying to a senior role, I wouldn't accept that. That looks like HTML. It is very similar to HTML, but that's not HTML. There are some subtle but important differences. But anyway, if you know HTML, that may sound familiar to you. Yeah? If you speak German, that will sound familiar to you, right? That's the same principle. All right. And now, look, if you paid attention, look at line number 11. That's particularly important. Hopefully, you can see that this is the source code that generates that result. You see? Look at the text. Edit source app and save to reload. Edit source app and save to reload. In other words, if I change that line to welcome to Codery, where coding happens, happy face, and I go back to my browser after saving the file, look at, I'm not going to refresh the browser, but I got my text on it. You may be thinking, oh, but that's pretty obvious. It's not. That's a new feature. Historically speaking, every time you save a file, every time you change something, you have to, first of all, save the file manually, Control-S, Command-S, then go to the browser and refresh the page. I don't have to save the file. It happens automatically. You probably have to do that. But there is a way in Visual Studio Code to do that automatically. I'm not going to explain that now. But anyway, I don't have to save the file, and I don't have to refresh the browser. Hopefully you can see that that will speed up the process of adding new features into my platform, right? Okay, so this is a smoke test. A smoke test is, you know, when you got the driving license, when you turn 18, and of course your very first car is not a really good car. You're not making 100 a day, right? So you don't get the latest BMW. You get probably a legacy car from your family, whatever. And sometimes the car, the engine doesn't really work, and you know, it's an old car, all these things, right? You know all these things. So a smoke test means you turn the key, you try to switch on the engine, and then you look on the back of the car. If you see smoke coming from the back of the car, that means that the car is okay. Is it rocket science? Of course it's not. But if there is no smoke on the back of the car, nothing will work, right? So that's a smoke test. We just did a small subtle change, a very silly change, just to see if our app reacts to our desires. And it does, yeah? I'm wondering how the smoke test, how to explain a smoke test in the future with electric cars, right? But that's a different story. For now, let's do something, because we know that our setup is fantastic. If we want to build on the next multi-billion startup, I guess you agree we don't want that landing page. That doesn't make sense. We need to bring to have some soul, some specific user interface, unique user interface, right? So look at what I like to do every time I create a new app. You see, from line 8 to line number 21, the header tag, you know what I'm going to do now, right? Delete it completely, massively, radically. Delete all the markup, only keep the root tag. And then let's have a title. Can anyone tell me in HTML how to display a big title on the screen?
H1.
H1, I love it. H1, and then welcome to the characters app, for instance, yeah? If I go back to my web browser, here you go, you see? If you like painting, you know that to paint something, you start with an empty canvas, with a white canvas, yeah? You don't start painting on top of that poster, you start painting here. So that's the same principle. We want to start from scratch. All right, so now let's learn how to add an image to the screen. Yeah? So, because I want to display a list of characters, first of all, let's talk about, look at what I'm doing, guys. I'm adding a div, like a container, and inside of the div, I'm going to add a label, and inside of the label, this is just HTML, right? I'm not doing anything exotic about React, just HTML. Inside of the label, I like to display the name of the character. For instance, Mr. Boris, right? Why not? All right, and now, look, I got the name of Boris, and I want to display a nice picture of him. Let's learn how to add images to our application. First thing, we need to find an image, and this has nothing to do with coding, right? We need to go to Google, and then type the name of the character, Boris, and go to images. You know how to do all these things, right? And then find a nice picture of him, which is going to be challenging. And then once you got your picture, then right click, that's important, save image as, so we're going to download the image. And this is important, guys, we need to save the image inside of the project. Don't save the image in your downloads folder, in your desktop, that won't work, yeah? A React project is a sandbox. Everything should be self-contained. So again, we need to find where the project is. In my case, it's in my home directory, and now characters, and very important, it's hard to see, unfortunately, I cannot zoom that view, but it's very important to save the file inside of the src folder. Don't save it outside. If you save it outside, React will complain. So please locate the src folder, and then ideally rename the image, because from Google, the image name could be something very weird and random. So I like to call it Boris. Yeah? And then we save it. As soon as we save it, if we pay attention, look at what happened. On the left-hand side, VS Code automatically, immediately realized there is a new file. If I click on it, I can even preview it. Yeah? That's our image. So now, how do we display the image? We need to do two things. First of all, we need to import the image. That's a way to say, hey, the image is available to be rendered as many times as necessary. How do we import the image? Look, that's important, guys. Import, then the variable that will host the image. It doesn't really matter what we type here, but for now, let's type Boris. From, look at the syntax, this is vital. And then with quotes, single or double quotes, the location where the image is. In my particular case, my image, Boris, is on the same directory as my main file. You see, they are siblings, they are neighbors. So how do we access a file that is on the same directory as the current file? Does anyone know? No? We need to type dot slash. Dot slash is a way to tell React, hey, the file I'm trying to import is a neighbor, it's on the same folder as the current file. And now, of course, we need to type the name of the file, boris.jpg. Be careful with the extension. It doesn't matter, yeah? If you got a JPEG file and you import a PNG, it won't work. All right, and now question for you guys. Do you think that now the sexy face of Boris Johnson will be on the screen, yes or no? No, why not?
We have to use Boris in our HTML code.
Correct. We are importing the image, so we are making it available, but now we need to display it. How do we display an image in HTML, guys? IMG, I like it. IMG. And now what? SRC. Correct. Be too extra careful. Some people say, hey, it doesn't work. And you sit with him or with her and you realize the person typed instead of SRC, SCR, right? That won't work with SCR. So be careful, SRC. And now that's the main difference. In HTML, we can do something like that, right? We can do slash, Boris, blah, blah, blah. That's not the way it works in React. In React, we need to be careful with that. Use curly brackets. We will use curly brackets a lot. React loves curly brackets. And curly brackets is a way to tell React, hey, I'm going to use a variable. Can anyone tell me what's the name of my variable?
Boris.
Boris, correct, because that's what we declare here. Boris. And then we can close the tag. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So will Boris be on a stage now? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes? Cool, let's have a look. That's it. We got Mr. Boris. Yeah? It works. Could be improved a bit, but it works, right? All right, if you paid attention to the server, it throw a warning. Few warnings, actually. First of all, line number 2. Logo is defined but never used. That's true. That's legacy. That was the React logo. Do you remember it? Yeah. Delete it. We don't care about it anymore. And now, that's very important, guys. Some people ignore that. Line 11. Image elements must have an alt property. In other words, we need to do that. Alt equals, and then a descriptive text, like Boris Johnson. Does anyone know what the alt tag is about?
If the picture is not loaded, then it shows the name.
All right, yeah, that's a good reason. That's a good reason. Anything else? What happens if the picture is rendered? Is there any YouTube?
If you mouse over, it shows up the detail by detail.
That's not true. It's a good answer, but that's not true because that happens with the title attribute. That's alt attribute. Fantastic. That's the best answer possible. So blind people access the internet as well. And how they do that? They have special web browsers that speak to them. Yeah. So a special web browser tells a user with impaired abilities. This is a website. The title is Welcome to Characters app. There is someone called Boris Johnson. But the thing is, unfortunately today, screen readers are unable to identify who is that person. Yeah? That's why, thanks to the alt attribute, they can tell the user, hey, there is an image, and the image is about Boris. I strongly believe that thanks to AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, within the next few years, not long, and screen reader will be able to go to Google, paste that image into Google, and Google will tell the screen reader who is that guy. Yeah, that's not sci-fi. I hope you agree this is going to happen shortly. All right, look, my character name is here. Let's leave it there for now, even though it's probably not ideal. Let's think about another character. So look, before going that far, let me rename Boris to Boris Johnson, like that, right? And obviously we rename it in both places, and then it works. Does anyone know, this is a bit of programming culture, what's the name of that case syntax? Camel case, that's correct. This is camel case. Why? Because the shape looks like a camel going up and down, right? Why not? For instance, however, if we come from the PHP wall, if we do that, what's the name of that case? Snake case, correct. It does like the snake, right? That's true. And back to camel case. What happened if we change the first character to capital B? That's not camel case anymore. What's the name of that case?
Plus.
What?
Plus.
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 Class case. Okay, that's a good answer. Class case is good. Historically speaking, that was called Pascal case, because Pascal was the first programming language to use it. And the last one, which is the only one, all the syntax is valid, right? Look, Pascal case or class case, Boris is still there. I'd like to show you the only case that is not valid in JavaScript to declare a variable. And you'll tell me the name of that case with a hyphen or a dash. Look, VS Code automatically complains. You see? Errors everywhere. First of all, what's the name of that case? Kebab case. Fantastic, fantastic. So if you are below 40 years old, if you're a millennial or these sort of things, the way you call it is kebab case. Why? Because that looks like a kebab. Maybe in our imagination, look like a kebab, and then you got the blade going through the meat. Yeah. However, if you're a 62 years old developer, you may refer to it as Lisp case, because Lisp was the first programming language to use it. Yeah? Kebab case, Lisp case. All right, look, VS Code complained about it. This is one of the reasons why VS Code is, according to GitHub, the most popular IDE, the most popular coding editor. Here at Codery, we are not very opinionated. Some people fall in love with Sublime or with Atom or with whatever. Yeah, that's fine. However, we can recommend you VS Code. There are many advantages of using VS Code. When I participated in a Google conference in 2015, all the Google employees used VS Code, and that was a bit shocking. Why? Does anyone know who created VS Code? It's Microsoft. Yeah? So Microsoft created the best IDE in the world, and it has some key advantages compared to Sublime or to Atom. So with Sublime, it's open source. Sublime is not open source. You got monthly updates. Every month you get a new version, right? It's supported by a big company. It's very fast, it's very performant, it's very reliable. And my favorite feature of VS Code, does anyone know in which language VS Code is written? It is JavaScript. It is JavaScript. That piece of software, which is extremely complex, extremely performant, who has destroyed every other IDE in the world, including the paid, the premium versions, is written in JavaScript. We at Codery use it. We use it. I'd like to show it to you in 15 minutes. Yeah? But for now, just bear in mind that this is written in JavaScript. All right, so back to Boris. Like that. Let me add another character. Let's talk about Mr. Trump. Again, the same principle, right? Donald Trump, go to Google, images. Oh, I closed it, sorry about that. Images, and then let's find a nice picture about him, the first one, why not? And then save image as, and then the same thing, right? Donald, blah, 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 you know all these things. All right. So, what do we need to do to display Donald? You tell me this time.
Image tag.
Image tag,
First you need to
import it,
Donald from
yeah. Import Donald from Donald. In my case, the image has a WebP extension, which is a new thing created by Google, I think, some years ago, right? And of course, Donald, we need to refer to it. Does it make sense? Let's see if it works. It does work. Yeah, of course, the styling is not ideal, but at least we can display images. And then question for you. What happens if I want to rename Boris? With Visual Studio Code, you can rename variables. You can, of course, rename it manually. Or if you press, I think it's Control F2, I can rename it. I can rename all the instances. So if I call it Brexit, would it work or not? That's probably the only scenario where Brexit works as expected, right? But apart from that, from a human point of view, if you are a senior developer in a startup and you got a new grad, and the grad sends you a code review, and this is the code, this is a snapshot he or she sent to you, what do you think? Would you approve or reject that piece of code, and why?
reject.
Why?
It's inconsistent. It's far easier to have consistent naming rather than have Brexit be, because that doesn't really tell you what you're expecting to see in the image.
Correct, you got the job. I love that answer, right? The most complicated aspect of coding is not to write code, it's to read code. Read code that has been written by others. Yeah? Actually, as part of our bootcamp, probably you've seen, we've got a couple of whiteboards. Every single week, we do a board challenge. We prepare an algorithm, and we invite our students to talk about it. It's not about giving the answer, what the function returns 4 or 5. It's about expressing your thoughts about the algorithm. So the most complex aspect of coding is readability. If I create a variable called Brexit, it's not going to give me a lot of context about what's going on under the hood, right? That's why we need to be careful with the naming conventions, like people type in I. I'm sure you've seen that many times. That's completely bullshit. Don't do that, right? So let's make sure that our variables are readable and they describe the purpose of your code. All right. Let's add our third character. You tell me, guys, which one do you want to talk about? No one? All right, I'll do that. Let's talk about Miss Germany. Same thing, right? Google, images, not videos. And then let's download an image of Merkel. Save image as same thing, right? That's the last image. And I'll tell you in a minute why I'm adding 3 images. Same process, right? I copy the import, I replace the name Angela from Merkel, and then I copy my div, you know all these things, right? Angela Merkel, I'm referring to her as Angela. Of course, be careful with the alt attribute, right? Because otherwise, screen reader will think that Donald is actually Boris, yeah? They are not that different, but still different person, right? So Donald, and finally, Angela Merkel. All right. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it works, right? Again, it goes beyond the scope of the session to talk about UX and styling. In November, we'll have a UX session, yeah, with a UX specialist. But for now, that's okay. Talking about events, we have many interesting events on the horizon. We'll talk about that later on as well. But imagine that we got some budget, we got 3 million from our venture capital, and we hired a UX expert, and the first thing he or she complained is about the readability of the characters, yeah? I'm pretty sure, unless you are sitting on that table, no one can really read the name of the characters. This is not going to help to grow, yeah? So the feedback from UX is please increase the size of the character names. And then you said no problem at all, no problem at all. I can, for instance, use, instead of a label, an H2. Yeah, does it make sense? And that will hopefully increase the size of the character names. Look, much better, right? Now we can clearly read the name of the characters. So UX is happy. But I hope you start smelling what the problem is. If we got 3 characters, it works. But if we want to create the next multi-trillion app, we need to declare more than 3, right? Think about Netflix. Netflix wants to change the size of the movie titles. They don't manually go one by one increasing the font size. Because of that, I would like to show you how to scale that pattern. It's okay with 3 characters. As soon as we need more, we need to change the approach. And now, on the last minutes of this blog, I'd like to talk about React components. Components are probably the reason why React became so popular, yeah? Because thanks to components, we can reuse the same piece of code multiple times. In other words, if you go to ba.com because you want to go on holidays and you want to book some flight tickets, yeah, you see you got 2 calendars, right? Eventually, unless I don't know what's going on now with BA, right? But ideally, if I go to ba.com, ideally, yeah, that's the worst UX ever. I don't even know what's going on, but I'm unable to use ba.com, right? All right, so anyway, my point is, you know that sometimes you get 2 calendars, right? From when you want to fly and to when you're going to come back, right? All right, so do you think that BA wrote the same calendar twice? Of course not. They wrote it once and then they reuse it. All right, so that's what I like to do now. I would like to show you how to reuse that. It's pretty simple. We can create a component, and a component, at least on its most basic shape, is just a JavaScript function. If you don't really know what a JavaScript function is or how does it look like, I would like to invite you to any of our Introduction to JavaScript sessions. If you check on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Codery, we got that workshop already there, right? So a function looks like that. We type function, then the name of the function. I like to call it character. Look at the capital C. That's important. The syntax is important. A function, a component should start with capital letter, right? And then open and close curly brackets. We need to return something, a piece of HTML. Let's do a test. Hello, H1, big hello. Yeah, just for testing purposes. And then what? How do I display hello? The syntax is pretty sexy. It's very declarative. Look, anywhere on my component, I can open tag and close it. You see? So I'm essentially referring to that function. And what happened? Look, hello. Do you think, can I copy that multiple times? Can I do that?
Yeah.
Of course, right? That's the way we can reuse a piece of code easily, trivially. I don't want to display hello, I want to display a character. So now look at what I'm doing. I'm going to replace hello with the first character, Boris Johnson. And I'll delete the other 2. So Can anyone tell me what my multi-trillion app will display now? That's correct. Look, if I refresh, 3 times Mr. Johnson, that's probably too much. Yeah, that's probably too much. So even though the idea is correct, I hope you agree on that, we can call the same component multiple times, even though we want to reuse the structure with the character name and with the image, blah, blah, blah. In reality, we want to customize, we want to change a few things. So let's learn how to change the content of our component dynamically. This is very important, guys. We can pass attributes here. For instance, name. I made that app. You can pass name, you can pass whatever, doesn't matter for now. So name, Boris Johnson. Name, Donald Trump. And finally, name, Angela Merkel. 3 names. Yep. And now we can bind, because the component is still ignoring them. It doesn't matter what information we are providing. We'll still display Boris Johnson twice, 3 times, right? So the way we bind with that information, and this is important, we need to pass an argument. Here we can capture that information. The React community likes to call it props. In reality, you can call it, it doesn't matter, it's just an argument name. But just to match the standards, we should call it props. Props, it's an object. If you don't really know what an object is in JavaScript, again, back to the intro to JavaScript session. But for now, just to give you an overview, an object is a collection of key value pairs. It's like a dictionary. So if we have a user object, what information can we have about him or her? First name, last name, email, you know, age, address, information about the user. What information can we have about a car? Manufacturer, model, year, country, all these things, right? It's a collection of the details about that particular subject. All right, so instead of Boris Johnson, I want to display the name of the character. Look at how we do it. Again, curly brackets. I told you the curly brackets were very popular because we want to dynamically access a variable in JavaScript. And now, props. Does anyone know how to access a property of an object in JavaScript? Dot, correct, dot name, fantastic. Here we say, hey, React, please check the collection of properties we are passing and give me the value associated to each name. Give me the value of the first name, give me the value of the second name, give me the value of the last name. So can anyone tell me what my multi-quadrillion app will display now?
The correct name.
But
The name that you passed.
what about the image?
The image will be this.
Correct. Look, now we got something weird, something awkward, right? The name of the character is right, so we're doing something right, definitely. However, I don't believe this is Angela Merkel, right? So we need to do the same thing with the image. We need to pass another attribute. I hope you get the idea, right? We can pass as many properties as we want. I like to call it avatar. It doesn't really matter, actually. Image, picture, profile, up to you guys. Avatar, and then we need to bind with the variable that we are passing, we're importing on top. Yeah? Avatar, Boris, avatar, Donald, and last but not least, avatar, Angela. Anything else, guys? Correct. The source is wrong. So, what do we have to display here? Props.avatar. I love it. Any thoughts about the old property for special web browsers? What should we put here? Props.name. I like it. Props.name. Will it be okay now or not? What do you think? No one? Right? When no one answers, it's either because no one is paying attention or no one is understanding what I'm talking about. Right? Either scenario is not ideal. All right. Seriously, does it? No one knows what will this play now? Will it be correct or not?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Let's have a look. Oh, that looks promising, right? Even though Angela doesn't look very happy, his face is there, and everyone's face is there now. In other words, that's correct. That's correct. And why this is so nice? Because if now we want to change any aspect of our component, for instance, what happens if we want to add an exclamation mark or 3 exclamation mark? Look, we change it once, and then every character will inherit that change. It's very easy. It doesn't matter if we have 3 characters or 3 million. It's super easy to scale. And now the very last question about this block is, I have an exercise for you. I'm not going to solve by myself, so you'll have to do it. What happens if UX is happy, business is happy, we secure another venture capital round of funding of 10 million, and now we want to add the age, because that's gossip and that will help to get more traction on the market, right? So we want to display the age of each character near to the name. How will you do it? Right? Age equals what? How old Boris Johnson is? Does anyone know? Without going to Google? No one? All right. Boris Johnson age 55, right? Right. What about Donald? 72. Interesting. Donald Trump age. I think he's a bit older than that. 73. And finally, Angela, how old is she? No one? All right, let's figure out. 48. I'm sure she's really happy. It's fantastic, fantastic. Maybe her daughter is 48, right? 65 years old, right? All right, so is that it? Is there anything else we need to do? I'm all right. I live 20 minutes away, so I have a lot of time until I get some feedback from you guys.
We need to write a code to the characters.
Correct. Back to the character component. I want to display the age, something like that, with parentheses. Then what? I love it. What happens if I forget the curly brackets? Without curly brackets. Correct. It will display. Oh, weird, right? React is not even trying to interpolate the expression. But, as you already suggested, we can do that. Curly brackets, and then boom, it works. That's the way you scale, you create components using React. Of course, ideally, we don't want to have every single component on that file, because you can imagine that we may end up having hundreds, if not thousands of components. So ideally, we should move the character component to a new file, import it, all these things, yeah? But that goes beyond the scope of the session. At some point, we'll do a more advanced session about how to deal with components in React. Is there any questions?
No.
No? Cool. We got 10 minutes. So on the last 10 minutes, I would like to show you how do we improve our React skills. Yeah? We have created a platform which is completely free, so you can join it, and then you can train your skills by yourself. So if you've never heard about us, when you land on codery.com, apart from playing Street Fighter, you will see on top a link says play, right? If you click on that link, I would like to show you the platform that we use. We got about 8,000 developers on it, so it's growing a lot. And essentially, you will get something like that. You can train your JavaScript, React, HTML, CSS, next month Python, and then Java and Ruby on Rails. Yeah? You can train all these things. If you know Code Wars, this is based on the same principles, that it goes way beyond the scope of Code Wars. All right, so let's select React. We've got 3 levels of difficulty. Beginner, let's do a bit of beginner. And then you can see we've got several topics. So that's a way you can test and you can train your technical skills. So let's select render. And then what happened? Let's do a bit of coding, guys, all together. Look at the approach. On the left-hand side, we got the problem. I know you may be thinking, oh, what the hell is that? This is TDD. Yeah? TDD stands for what?
Test development.
Test-driven development,
Yeah.
correct, which is a very vital principle in software development. Yeah? Our students learn that by accident before understanding the reasons why. So look at let's understand the syntax. Welcome, that's the name of our component. So whenever we create a welcome function, we should statically return welcome to React. Yeah? If that sounds like Chinese, we have a dedicated video, very short video, 2-3 minutes, explaining you what a component is, how to deal with it, blah, 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 blah. Right, on the right-hand side, thankfully, the structure, the skeleton of our React component is already created. So, the only thing we need to do is to build the content of the component, which is something like, welcome to React, something like that. What do you think? Do you think, even though it's a bit hard to read, that text satisfies the expectations on the left-hand side? Yes or no? No, why not? Ooh, nice. We missed an exclamation mark. What happened if we didn't notice that? Let's evaluate. Let's submit our solution. Wrong. You see, immediately becomes red. It highlights the failing line and it's telling you the diff. Welcome to React. Hey, that's pretty much the same. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot the exclamation mark. So we can simply add it and then try again. Let's see what happened now. Pay attention. Confetti time. Yeah, everyone loves confetti. You know that there are some venture capitals interested in participating in Codery, and it's impressive because you can show them all the algorithms, all the infrastructure, all the complexity under the hood, and the thing that they evaluate the more is the confetti that took us an hour to build. Anyway, that's a separate story. Do you think that is perfect? Would you change anything here? It's not obvious, but if we scroll down, look at the elegance console. What that means? That thing, right? That thing. So our students, they learn good practices, good patterns, and that's why we believe they are really well prepared for the market, way better than other bootcamps, because by accident they focus on standards, and the standards suggest to use semicolons at the end of your lines. Does anyone know who decides these standards?
That's really free.
So we got 2 things here. First of all, who decides the future of JavaScript? Who decides which new features are introduced? That's the TC39. That's a group of Swiss people based somewhere in the mountains, in the Green Mountains. Probably not, right? Probably they are based on an average WeWork building in Zurich. But anyway, they decide the future of JavaScript. Thankfully, today, there is a GitHub repo where anyone can contribute and suggest new ideas. But this is not about the JavaScript standard. This is about styling guidelines. Things like semicolon, yes or no. Indentation, yes or no. Free empty lines, yes or no. The code will work on either case, yeah? But who decides what's the most beautiful and sexy way to code in JavaScript? I bet no one knows the answer, and this is going to be a bit shocking. It is that Airbnb. So these guys decide the styling guidelines of JavaScript. That's a bit surprising, yeah? But that's true. It's not the only standard, but so far the most popular coding standard in the world is defined by Airbnb, yeah? So next time you book an apartment in Ibiza to go partying to Pacha, remember that, yeah? Again, it goes beyond the scope of the session to explain how come Airbnb managed to get that. Yeah, if anyone is interested, we can talk about that later on with a beer, of course. All right, so after dropping the semicolon, we try again, and now, of course, we got confetti, but now no elegance-related issues. The solution is perfect. And now the very last question, question number 2. Let's try to understand that. Pretty similar. What we need to build here is another component with 2 P tags. P stands for what? Does anyone know? Paragraph, yeah? That's a semantic tag in HTML. On the first paragraph, we should display welcome. On the second paragraph, we should display to React. Thankfully, we got the first paragraph already prepared, and now we can add the second one. By the way, maybe you didn't notice, but look at how sexy this is. I use a shortcut to copy the current line. And the reason why that worked is because I'm using a very powerful IDE. Does anyone know which IDE are we using at Codery? That's true. That's true. Visual Studio Code. We on the web are using Visual Studio Code. That's the reason why JavaScript is so sexy. Because you can go to Visual Studio Code, you can grab that component, and you can use it for free in your app. That's completely fabulous. That's absolutely outstanding. All right, so welcome to React. Something like that. Right or wrong, and why? Ooh, that's an interesting discussion. Is JavaScript case sensitive? Yes or no? Yes, it is. It is. It is. In other words, if we run it, boom. It highlights to React, and if we compare it, hopefully everyone agree that these 2 messages, if you have to read them, are the same, but if you have to check the case of every single character, they are not the same. Yeah? So in JavaScript, case matters. Is the syntax important? So will that work or not? No. It will work. It will work. Hopefully. Let's have a look. First of all, confetti time. It works. Let's have a look to the warnings. Indentation is wrong on line number 3. Yeah, but that's still our recommendation. This is what Airbnb, well, not only Airbnb, everyone, right? But this is what the community accepts. It should be like that for readability purposes. In Python, you've done a bit of Python, you know that wouldn't work. Python is very strict with the indentation, but JavaScript is a bit more flexible. Yeah. All right, so let's submit the question. I'll skip the next question. So for every individual challenge, you got 5 questions that prove how good you are dealing with that particular topic in React or in JavaScript or whatever. Yeah. And then what happened at the end? Look, that's the main difference with Code Wars. You get a score. So we tell you how good your performance was according to several metrics we are capturing during the exercise. How many questions you've completed, how long it took you to complete the challenge, how many times you went to Google to get help, which is a bad thing, yeah? And how elegant, how standard your code is. Based on all these metrics that could be, divided on each question, we give you a score. And why the score is important? Because eventually, one of our most popular activities are the coding challenges. I know some of you know this thing already. So we've run more than 300 coding challenges. A coding challenge is an activity where we all come together, we get the same questions, and we need to prove who is the best developer, right? Now we're even doing team challenges. Let me show you an example. So this is the challenge that our students ran actually on Monday. Look at what we got. They got the same questions. This is about HTML and CSS. And look, every developer is a color. So here we can compare the performance. That's beginners. This is the basic questions. But then on the right-hand side, I can clearly see that question number 3 was arguably the most complicated one because they had to spend quite a lot of time dealing with it, right? So based on that, now we can reveal the individual results. We can, of course, even do things like comparing the code side by side. I'd like to show it to you in a minute, but you can see we can reveal the results for every developer. We can see the position on the challenge. We can even see the position of that developer in the global ranks, all these sort of things, right? And as I mentioned before, yes, you can see for every single question, this is about building user interfaces for mobile. We can see who is right, who is wrong. This is beginner, right? So this is pretty simple. But if we show intermediate, you will see the questions are way more challenging, right? And the last thing here is now we work by teams. Look, we set up 3 teams, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. And then you can even get an overview about the strength of every developer on that team. And then the goal is to succeed as a team, yeah? So it's not an individual challenge, it's a team challenge. Look at what happened. We can get the average score of each team. So we encourage collaboration, yeah? And of course, confetti time for the winners, right? Why am I mentioning that? Because if you check our Meetup challenge, our Meetup group, on the next week, on the 21st, we ran that. We ran a team challenge. It's the second time actually we do that. There are only, I think, 7 places left for this one, but this is a fantastic activity. Developers love it because you work by teams, yeah? The day before, on the 20th, talking about events, we have a huge event in Shoreditch, in Finch, with free drinks and food. Unfortunately, tickets got taken in 52 minutes. But the message is we continue doing these sort of events. On the 5th of September, we have our first international event, UK versus Spain. Part of the Codery team will be in Spain, part of the Codery team will be here. So we'll have about 80 developers in the UK in the same room, coding together, God save the Queen, and all these things, right? And same thing in Spain. And at the end of the challenge, we'll compare the results. As you can see, we encourage collaboration, and that's why we became such a successful Meetup group, because developers, one of the most difficult things when coding is to stay motivated. Yeah, you can learn by yourself, follow with an online course, all these things, and it will be fantastic on the first couple of days until you struggle with a problem and no one is there to help you. Yeah, so we are building, I believe, a great community. And just to wrap up this session, so again, the platform is free. So regardless of whether you want to join our bootcamp or not, feel free to join it. We also got this fantastic chart where you can see the ranks with the best developers. This is the information that we share with employers, yeah? So if an employer has to hire a junior developer, they check on these statistics, and then for them it's very easy to decide if they have to hire them or not. So Vivian, a very famous developer at Codery, she got a job as a Node developer recently. Why? Because the companies, they check the attitude, the motivation. This person has been 6 times best player of the day out of 8,000 developers, right? We even got the Hall of Fame, where you can see how many players we got, statistics, best players of the day. I'm sure 90% of you know Mr. Giacomo, right? So we got many famous developers here. You can see best developers of the day of the week. We got Google employees, we got Facebook employees, statistics by country. You know, the platform is growing a lot, and you are more than invited to join us. So from our side, that's pretty much it. If anyone is interested on joining the next cohort, the last one of the year, just bear in mind that we don't really make business by running this. We are trying to offer an affordable approach to very expensive bootcamps in London, and we believe that the value you get out of it is way above that what you can get in London, right? So if anyone is interested, and this is the very last thing, you get a link to book your place. Places are limited, they will sold out quickly as usual, but if anyone is interested, just as a matter of respect to you in such a rainy day, we would like to offer you a promo code, right? So if at the time of booking in the next 24 hours, you introduce that code on the right-hand side, you'll get 10% off out of our extremely affordable plans. On top of that, the only thing I can say is thank you for attending this session. Codery is your home. You are more than invited to join us anytime. Thank you, of course, to the Codery people, to Ahmed, to Bilal, to Jack, to Seb, Sonia, I'm not sure if she's around or not. Now we'll bring some drinks. If it's not raining, we can go to the terrace. If it's raining, we can stay here for a while, talk about coding, cars, fashion, bootcamp, whatever. And then we're playing a ping pong tournament in 30 minutes. So you're, of course, welcome to join us. Don't underestimate how important ping pong is. One of our students got a job because of his ping pong skills. So thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoy it. I'm looking forward to see you soon. Cheers. Thank you.